Hi guys, sorry about the kind of the moody lighting. It's a little overcast today. And I'm going to talk about something that's kind of moody and artistic, and I'm going to talk about why I pose nude. I would love to start a movement and have other influencers, models, actresses, people who pose nude to kind of talk about it, because I think nudity is a very taboo subject in at least America. I haven't traveled much, so I can't say for all the other countries. Obviously, I can't pose nude on Instagram. How I would ideally like to do this conversation is completely naked, but you'll get censored. And it's weird to me because, and I understand that there are like pedophiles who could use inappropriate nakedness towards children, but usually, unfortunately, a pedophile is not going to be a stranger on the street. Can it be? Yes, but a pedophile is going to be somebody you know, and usually that's an abuse of power that happens. And I just want to say that because I know that there are times when like nakedness isn't appropriate or is dangerous. But in terms of photography, I'm a rape victim myself. I was raped as a child. I was raped and molested as a teenager. I was raped as an adult. It's pretty hard for me to go at least a year without a scary situation. I'm very curvy, and for whatever reason, I have a sexual energy. My sister does too. I've never had any problems. I've never gone very long without waiting for a boyfriend. And even when I've been single, it's always like I have 3 people knocking down my door, and I never really got it because I was never, it's like, that's what's also very weird, is because I was never like the prom queen or somebody who was so beautiful. I was somebody, like, I always thought I was like kind of ugly. I was like made fun of for being ugly and having a dog face and stuff. And so like maybe I came into my looks, maybe it's the fact that I pose nude and that I'm not afraid of owning my sexuality, that these things have changed. But yeah, I first posed nude. I didn't love the way and the experience of posing nude the first time. I didn't really do it with people that I trust. It wasn't for a project that my heart and soul was in, and it was mainly like body paint too, so it didn't feel completely nude, but I didn't feel safe there. And I definitely think for anybody going forward that that's what they should do. It's very hard in the creative world, honestly, to find, I think, a set as a rape victim where you don't feel triggered, because unfortunately, being raped, all of my triggers are all over the place and are not necessarily like how a normal person would feel in the situation. And creative things move fast. They don't really have time, unfortunately, to deal if you are uncomfortable, and I'm very professional, so I try to keep feelings like that to myself and work on them later. I hope I would have the courage to speak out if it was a super inappropriate situation, but for me, sexual situations take a little bit to process, so sometimes it's something that it didn't feel great in the moment, and it didn't feel all right in the moment, but it was like, I don't know if it's a rape victim thing or a trauma thing, and I have to go think about it and be like, no, it was the way that this was handled thing. And then usually I just either don't work with the person, and that's about it. I don't see the need of putting yourself in situations where you don't feel great, but for me, posing nude has kind of allowed me to overcome a lot of my rape fears. And I know people will always be like, well, you're not going to get jobs that way, and brands are going to think of you differently and not want to pose with you. And I understand if that is true. It's a bit unfortunate if it is, because me being naked shouldn't take away from somebody's brand image. There should be a separation of working for a brand and being part of a brand and the actual person, but that's not really how it's working in media these days, and I think that's a bit dangerous, but I can talk about that like for a long time. Yeah, but basically I posed nude to kind of get my sexual power back and to kind of feel more comfortable in my body. And I kind of wanted to document of like where my body was, and I thought it might be cool. I'm not really planning to have kids. I know people will be like, oh, what would your kids think if you pose nude or whatever, and it's like, probably think that grandma's fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Or mom was fucking rad, or like, mom was a badass, or they might be like grossed out about it. I don't think I would go around showing my fictitious children I'm never going to have because I have PCOS and it would be incredibly hard to have a child. I'm not going to show them my nudes by any means, but also I don't think the naked body is inherently sexual, and maybe it's because that I had an aunt that was a nurse and an uncle that was a doctor, but that was just never how it was. To me, what was sexual was like personality and kind of vibing well and somebody who's going to be there for you. To me, like, closeness and intimacy was sexualized, not just body. And most of America, I don't think agrees with me. And I think that's really unfortunate because I think that perpetuates the rape stereotype more so than anything. I understand not that there is an appropriate time for sexuality and like nudity. I understand that, like, I think there is a way to be cautious about it with kids and to not abuse nudity or to not make another person feel uncomfortable. But also, if somebody is feeling uncomfortable about your body, that might be their problem. I do think that it's important for, if you have a child, you should say like, hey, you know, like, being naked is fine, but if somebody is naked and is pressuring you to do things or is trying to get you to touch them and you don't want to, that is wrong, right? That's not, and that has nothing to do with nudity. That has to do with this person is being inappropriate with a child or even an adult. And I think we need to separate the things, especially that boys have nipples and can go topless, but for some reason, because I guess a baby sucks on a mother's breast for nourishment for life, women's boobs are sexualized. And I feel like that's a bit oppressing, especially like if, I know now we're calling it climate change, but if global warming is true, women are going to have to suffer because they can't take their shirt off if it's so hot. I mean, maybe that sounds ridiculous to you, and I will admit that it is like a little crazy, but it is weird that we've put these things. And in art, like, a bunch of people, like a bunch of the famous paintings all have naked people in them. And maybe the world and humanity is just horny and that's why. But I also think that there is like a realness. There's a hiding. It's kind of hard to have personal style when you're naked. It's a very vulnerable thing and it's very freeing. I obviously encourage everybody who is going to pose nude to be over the age of 18, as it's child pornography. And I mean, I have a couple of pictures that my family took of me when I was little with like my shirt off, but I've got like no boobs because I'm pubescent, right? And I don't feel like those pictures are sexual. I just like look like a child, right? Like I think it's weird that we sexualize the body, and I think what we need to work on as human beings is not sexualizing something right off the bat without knowing it. I mean, fantasy is all well and good, and I think good to be private, but I don't think it's like very, very hard mental thing to talk about because we're only making this much headway on a huge problem. But I think we need to sexualize getting to know people more, and that we've kind of started to treat people like objects, and I don't think it's doing society any good. I think that's why we have a lot of broken families. I'm not trying to shame your casual sex. I personally don't agree with it. I have never found it working for me. I can understand sometimes where it might help a person, and as long as that person is consenting and on the same wavelength, that's fine. But I have very few experiences of seeing where people are happy with that too. I feel like the majority of people want a relationship, and even having like a polyamorous relationship. I could understand that if everybody's cool with it. I think we just need to talk about these sorts of things more, and we don't really talk about them. And so I'm kind of starting the conversation on nudity. I'm wondering what you guys think and why you think that way. Is it because you were just told to think that way and that's just the way that it is? Or when you do really look at a naked body, do you really get like horny and turned on? Are you like, because I don't feel that way when I see naked bodies, and maybe it was just years of being on Tumblr and just getting porn in your feed that you're like, whatever, you get like desensitized towards it. But also it's like none of that was sexual for me because it wasn't me. And maybe it's like, maybe people have more overactive imaginations than I am, which seems pretty crazy to me, of like that they can picture themselves with this naked person and that everything just happens so fast in their mind. I don't know. But I basically wanted to say on here too that I've posed nude, but I've never posed in terms of pornography. I always really try to keep art nudes. I really don't, and that's not to shame sex workers, but for me, it kind of feels like how Angelina and Brad Pitt were about gay marriage. They were like, we're not going to get married until everybody can get married. And for me, it's like, until the sex industry can promise me that children are going to be protected and that there's not going to be sex trafficking of children or even women against their will, I cannot contribute to that industry, because that's very dangerous, and that's what like makes going outside at dark scary. That's what makes going to some of these photo shoots stressful, because it's like you never know, is somebody trying to prey on you, and it's just very weird. I honestly think too, like, I think nudity doesn't even apply to women. It applies to men too. And it's like a very vulnerable thing, and people have their taboos. And I'm not just saying, you should model nude, get over yourself. You should always do what is comfortable for you. You shouldn't feel pressured to do anything. But I definitely encourage just the explanation of like, what about nudity makes you uncomfortable? Because for me, kind of adjusting being nude, it made me more aware of my body, which was great in terms of like helping ground me from dissociating, which I was doing a lot because of trauma. And I just don't want people to ignore the benefits of being nude. To be honest too, I obviously live by myself, and I'm only really nude around my boyfriend, but when I eat, right, I like to be nude so I don't spill sauce on my shirts and I have to worry about buying a new shirt because I can't get the sauce stain out, or like so many other things that it helps. Like, I don't have to sweat in unnecessarily clothes. On terms of conservation, I save a lot. I don't do laundry every week. I do laundry like about once a month, because I'm nude most of the time, and like I work from home. Sorry to anybody who hires me that I work from home, that normally I'm just like working naked. If I post it on Instagram, usually naked when I did it. Yeah, and I wish that it was more okay too. I wish there wasn't such a shame, because I feel like that is the seed of where hating ourselves starts. And I so badly don't want to water that bush of self-hatred. I want to water a bush of self-love and acceptance. So I hope that made sense. It's kind of why I do it. I do it for my own personal strength. And I do it to kind of just see how my body changes over time. I think when I look back, it's going to be kind of beautiful in terms of an art project way. It's also just like helped me deal with my rape stuff. I don't even know how, in a way, I guess because of just like letting that vulnerability and being safe. There's definitely a couple of times where like things were sketchy, and that was also traumatizing, but it's like, that is the risk of life, unfortunately, as a rape victim, is like, you can't be guaranteed that you're never going to get raped again. Unfortunately, we do not live in that world. But I can take steps to making myself okay, and I can take steps to building that world where no one's ever going to get raped again. And people, I think that's impossible, but I'm not going to believe in that. I'm going to believe in a world where it is possible and that it will be done. But we're going to have to start the conversations, and maybe it won't make it in my lifetime, but I'm going to do everything that I can to make this a safer world for women, and make people feel less ashamed of their bodies, because you only got one life in this exact circumstance. And the more that you care about your body and learn to be okay with it and not dissociate from it, the more that you're going to take care of your own health, notice when problems are awry, be able to recognize problems in others and offer your help. I have a long way to go in terms of my healing, but I have never felt anything wrong with nudity unless it's in like an abusive situation, like somebody is making you be nude when you don't want to be nude. Then that's wrong. But it's not nudity that's wrong, it's the behavior around it. I'm just honestly very tired of people sexualizing things, and maybe there's nothing I can do to personally control that, but I do think we need to go a step further and be like, is it rapey if I say this, right? Is this an abusive thing to say? Is this an abusive thought to have? Is this thought like not okay? Is this thought just like something that's happening but I shouldn't voice it, or I should only voice it to like a professional and kind of work through it, or not to silence people, because I'd rather have people be wrong and speak up about it than be wrong and be silent and continue destroying the world or continue messing things up because I never felt the courage to speak about it. But I honestly, I mean, maybe it's wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong about nudity, because I don't know. I mean, one of the first stories you even hear in the Bible is about Adam and Eve, and they're naked, right? And you very seldom picture Adam and Eve not at least pretty naked. It's just very, very weird. And in the days of Instagram, it seems like the taboos about nudity are slowly wearing off. But I know in a lot of religious things, it's like very much of a shock factor, and some people like don't feel good about it, but it was a very much confidence builder for me. And I'm obviously, like I said, again, I'm not trying to pressure anybody to go into it if they're not, but I honestly, in my heart, I kind of believe everybody should pose nude once, because there's some sort of like reflective thing that goes on. Obviously only if you're comfortable, but I've learned a lot from my experiences doing it. I've become more comfortable with my body. It's helped me kind of stretch places in my body that I normally wouldn't have. It's honestly just helped me being more confident. I think I could be 80 and saggy and still be okay with posing nude, because I've learned to, like, my body isn't the way that I want it, right? I want this ideal that's been, like, force-fed down my mouth since I was, like, pretty much able to see and process things in my brain, as, like, an infant, right? There's this, like, image of how you are supposed to be and look and whatever, but you look the way you look, and probably odds are it's, like, fine, right? I think, too, once you have a personality and once you have peace about yourself, that stuff, it doesn't matter what your facial features are, it doesn't matter what your body is. When you have knowledge and your own power and your own confidence, it just shines right through. I was thinking that Roald Dahl quote where it's about, if you have good thoughts, you will look beautiful, and I 100% believe that's true. There's so much pressure to like look a certain way or want to fix things about yourself, but posing nude has helped me love my imperfections and kind of see them as assets. And then maybe it's hard to imagine girls being like, oh, I wish that I looked like her, or I wish I had this about me, because I feel that way about like other girls, and I think like that happens with a lot of people, but this is probably a reminder that you're probably kicking it, right? There's something that you do that nobody else can do, and that is amazing, and I can't wait for you to do more of that thing. And maybe even do more of that thing nude if you're of the age and feeling comfortable with that and want to explore that, and get over this fear. Because it feels like controlling to be like, being naked is not appropriate, because you are naked so many times. You are naked when you bathe. You might be naked when you go to sleep. You might have to get naked at the doctor's office. It's a way of life, and I don't think we should have any shame about nudity. So that's why I pose nude. If you guys like this or have any thoughts or want to take it out, I hope you're not mean and hateful. I'll probably still try to respond to you and reason with you and see if I can't break your hate boundaries and turn them into love. But, you're going to comment what you want to comment. At least in America, we have free speech. So far. But, yeah, so comment what you think. I'd love to inspire other videos. Please tag me in them. And, yeah, let's get the conversation going. Thanks so much for watching and listening.